Hey gang, Captain Jim Ross and Captain Mike Mann in the studio with today's show. Whole lot of talk about what's going on in the lagoon, how the black drum fishery has gotten so much better, and of course, those Cobia are coming, so get ready. You're going to enjoy this show. Don't miss it and enjoy the rest of your week. Hopefully you guys and gals will get a chance to get out there and catch some fish.
Well, good morning, East Central Florida, and welcome to another edition of Catch a Memory Outdoors right here on WWBC 1510 AM. I'm Captain Jim Ross, and we appreciate you guys and gals tuning in every Saturday morning to see what's going on up and down the Space Coast. If you're joining us here on the radio, good morning. Thank you for listening on the 1510 signal. Remember, in Brevard County on the Space Coast here in Florida, you can also get us at 99.9, 94.7, and 100.7. Those are low-power FM frequencies that you can also listen to basically between about Titusville and the Palm Bay, Sebastian area. And I'm Captain Jim Ross, host of this show, and we appreciate you guys and gals tuning in every Saturday. Sorry, no intro music. We've had a little scrub on our intro music this morning, but that's okay. We're going to have a great show nonetheless. For those of you out there on Facebook, good morning. We appreciate you tuning in on the Facebook feed as well. And, of course, if you missed the show for whatever reason, obviously you're listening live now, but if you missed the show or you can't listen to the whole show, you can always go back and listen to it on our YouTube feed at Captain Jim Ross on the YouTube channel, and you can watch all of the shows there as well. Captain Mike Mann is my special guest this morning. Good morning, bud.
Good morning, Jimbo.
I tell you what, man, it is a beautiful, beautiful week of weather coming up, and I'm so looking forward to it.
I am so excited. I know how to dress all week.
Yeah.
It's like, well, dog, where? I mean, I haven't. I've had.
Here's
no
the best part about this week: no long johns.
No long johns. No foot warmers that you're having to stand on in your boots.
No north wind with rain on top of it.
It has been a bizarre month as far as weather. We've been. I mean, there's some days where I'm expecting to come out of clothes, and I never come out of them. Then there's days like I'm going to be freezing all morning. Next thing you know, I'm shedding jackets at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yesterday at about 10:30, I started to feel it.
Yeah.
I started to feel it for the first time since December. I felt the perspiration starting to develop.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing a technical shirt, you know. I actually felt that perspiration start to develop, and I'm like, oh, it's on.
The sweat felt so good.
It's on now. Yeah.
I was sitting there at a red light, and I'm looking up. I looked at the temperature gauge, and I've got that Gladiator, and I've got my soft top on right now, which I put on during the winter months. Yeah. I'm sitting at a red light. It just turned red. I flipped that thing. It flipped the top back. I went, come on, son. Give me some.
Bring it. Well, after 2 weeks of character building, that's we're going to call that stretch of the two coldest weeks of the year being that second and third week of January historically. And again, you know, it fell right into place this year. This last week has been a gradual warm up. I've seen in the Indian River, I have seen the waters come from 52, 53 all the way up to 61 yesterday.
Nice.
So that was really encouraging. The beach was about 57, and it's come up also to about 60 or 61. So it's one of those things where every year, you know, the cold shuts everything down. You have little spurts where they eat during the day.
Yeah.
Now the fish are much happier. The weather's improving, and man, this past 3 or 4 days was pretty daggum good.
Oh, it was real good.
And I'm expecting that to just follow through on through this next week.
We had 36-inch red on fly.
Nice.
We had a 32-inch black drum on fly. We had a 38-inch redfish on a shrimp and a jig head because I had a father and son that fished with me a couple times.
Right.
And it was seeing tailing fish was really happy. It made me, and you know, one of the things I noticed, I'm seeing a lot of mixed schools where you see a redfish tail pop up and then there's a black drum tail next to it.
Interesting.
And I've got probably 3 different large breeder size schools that I have found mixed redfish and black drum in. And so you don't know what you're going to catch. And like, especially with throwing fly, the presentation's completely different.
Right.
The strip is completely different. So, we're stripping it through, never got the black drum Deneen. I go, give it a couple real quick strips. A couple quick, fast strips, goes tight. 36
There's
inch
the red.
redfish.
Yep, there's the
I'm
red.
like,
I was like, you speed the retrieve up, and all of a sudden the redfish is like, oh, no, you don't. I'm going to eat you.
so I am wondering if we are going to start seeing some hybrids. Because I've heard some reports.
I've only ever caught 2 in my life.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's I don't know how that's a thing. Because if you think about it, when do redfish spawn?
In the fall.
Right.
Yeah.
When do black drum spawn?
Right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
So, but there's always a way. Nature always finds a way, right?
So what I'm wondering is if maybe the male redfish, because I don't know, or do they always have, produced, or are they like, we are, where they can release at any time?
That's a good question.
we
don't clean
that size.
Yeah, you don't typically clean redfish that are of breeding size.
Yeah.
However, having said that, I know you've seen 25 and 26 inch fish that have had either milt or roe in them in the fall time. I know you've seen that because I've seen that.
I've had
myself.
it all over my pants.
Yeah. But those in slot fish, I mean, the whole reason for the slot on redfish was to keep the breeder fish in the breeding stock.
Yeah.
And if at 20, they're early bloomers, if you will, at 25, 26 inches, they start to develop. And I have seen them with both milt and roe in them at that. But here's the other crazy thing. In November, we were cleaning snook with roe in them. In November,
which is
I'm just like shaking my head. And milt too, actually, and milt. We had a 31 1/4 inch snook that had milt in it. That's just really
in
odd.
November.
That's in November. That's bizarre.
Crazy.
First of all, he's way bigger than what he should be. He should have already transformed from male to female.
Yeah.
He should have gone tranny on us already. At 27, 28 inches, he should have started to turn. By 31 inches, he should be full female. He should be full tranny and gone from male to female.
Yeah.
And this fish was still full. I mean, I'm not talking about small milt sacks. I'm talking about full, like it's August.
Yeah,
like it's July or August. Full milt sacks in it. So that was kind of interesting that we saw this past year. And the roe that was in the snook was underdeveloped roe.
Yeah.
It was probably half the size of what it was going to be. Obviously, we don't clean snook anymore.
Yeah.
In spawning season.
Yeah.
But in September this year, we cleaned a lot of snook that still had egg sacs in them. I'm fully developed, not partially.
Yeah,
and so November to have one that looked like it was maybe 50% of the way, that was really interesting.
Yeah. Well, the whole year, 2024 was odd weather.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had basically Christmas a year ago. We had a freeze.
Yeah.
Then we got
with hail.
With
sleet or whatever my wife called that.
And then it went to, it was cold. Then it's 80 degrees.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of 80s in January last year. Very little, we had some cool times. And then August or May, it was 90. It was in the 90s, and it stayed in the 90s through May, June, July, August, September. Then we got a little bit of cold stuff. I mean, normally the 90s don't really get to, in my area, till late June. You'll start, you might bump 90 every now and then, but mid 90s through May and June is not
solid every day.
Yeah, it's not our typical weather. And
solid every day.
It was one of those weird years where kind of everything got thrown off, and our big fear up there was we were going to have a snook kill off, and it never quite got cold enough.
I was going to say, you had called in a couple of weeks ago, and that water temperature was down around 53, and then you called in the following week, and it was down at
I think 48.
Oh, did it get into the 40s?
Yeah, 48's the lowest I saw. And
now was that in the shallows, or was that in like the channel?
That was actually in the channel.
Yeah. Interesting.
And right after we had that, the water did the turnover, and because you still had a little dirty water out in the channel, but after it hit 40 in the channel, everything cleared up. I mean, it's back the way it used to look, 15 years ago when I'm running this time of year, and I feel like I'm back in the Keys.
Yeah.
And it's it didn't stay there very long, but we had a solid week and a half with mid to low 50s.
Yeah.
And I was starting to get nervous. You'd see a dead fish here or there, but nothing like we had in 2010 where there were just tails floating from these giant trout and snook bobbing everywhere. We didn't have quite the snook population then that we have now. I mean, there's a lot
of snook now.
There's a lot of snook in Mosquito Lagoon.
We're fortunate that the lagoon has rebounded in the manner that it has because it gives you options. Yeah. 5 years ago, well, let's put it this way, 7 years ago, trying to have a conversation about what am I going to go catch today, in addition to the 17 or 18 catfish.
Yeah.
Because the water was so bad, the algae blooms were so bad that we had to basically, you were relegated to fishing topwater plugs first thing in the morning, and then as soon as the topwater bite stopped, it was straight to chunk bait. Because the fish could not find any kind of a jig, spoon, anything else you wanted to throw. I mean, maybe a chatterbait, but
but it was so dirty, and they just weren't aggressive either.
No.
So it was, going from that, and I know so many guides that just, I'm done. I sold their flats boats, bought bay boats.
Yeah.
Now they're kind of regretting it a little bit. I was fortunate. And you and I both kind of held on to our flats boats and our bay boats, and we've run 2 boats for a long time. So it's kind of nice because I've been polling a lot. Matter of fact, I looked at my wife. She goes, I'm sore. I said, I've been polling a lot, a lot of polling, and not in ideal wind conditions polling. It's like, okay, let's see if we can go into this wind a little bit. I'll try and get a little bit of an angle, and the water's been so low that it's hard to get leeward islands because the water's so far off the islands.
You're far enough away that the wind's catching you.
And it's been,
and that's even in a Hell's Bay, which is, you're floating in 6 inches of water.
Yeah, I'm in 6 inches of water. But a few of the places what I've done, because the fish were sitting actually kind of not in that 6 to 8 inch area. They were sitting a little bit off, so I was able to get on the shore side, and we were casting out towards
away from the shore.
Yeah, casting away from the shore. I had a couple schools of black drum that, I was basically working the shoreline, and I was as shallow as I could possibly go. And every now and then I have to cut out a little bit just to get a little deeper water. But then we were looking over and seeing the fish in that 3 foot of water.
Yeah.
The water's clear enough, and you got a school of 200 black drum that are 26 to 30 inches. They stand out.
Oh, yeah.
If you know what you're looking for, it's like, no, that's not grass. Cast. Throw there. But this past week.
And real slow.
With this new moon, we did have a couple of days where they went into full daisy chain spawn mode. And I'm like, they're not going to eat. Let's go somewhere else.
Let's go find something else.
Well, I had one on. I said, no, you snagged one. You snagged one. It pulled loose. I go, the shrimp was intact when you brought it back. So let's move. Let's go find something else. Let them spawn and make some babies. So we got a good population of them. But we fished a school of about 500 black drum on Thursday. 500 black drum.
Wow. So, obviously there are guys that are commercially netting black drum.
Yep.
In Mosquito Lagoon and the upper Indian River Basin.
Yep.
And, I don't
understand I don't understand FWC.
I don't either. I don't understand how they're allowing any commercial harvest of a lot of these species.
I think black drum should be made a sport. I mean, I think it should get the same protections and stuff
that redfish
and snook and trout get, because I mean, let's face it, it's become a very, very viable, actually a better more viable fishery. They're so hardy.
Yeah.
They can handle the cold. They can handle dirty. they don't mind not having grass. They don't mind, a lot of the stuff, and that's why they've done so well over the last few years, because all the stuff that the redfish and trout did not like drum are fine with it.
Yeah.
I mean, they lived in retention ponds, back in the ponds that are just muck ponds, basically.
Yeah.
So I think they deserve the same protection. And, let's drop it down. Who needs... I don't want 16. I don't want to keep 16 black drum if I've got,
Yeah. Three,
or 12.
3 or 4 is more than enough. And really 2 is plenty.
2's plenty. I mean,
especially if they're 20, 22 inches, that's plenty of fish.
Yeah, so drop that down, get rid of the netting for them.
Period. Just no net harvest whatsoever.
I mean, because these guys are animals. I mean, the guys are doing it. And listen, I understand that's how you make your living. That's probably how your families made their living. But
the problem with commercial fishermen is their mentality.
Yeah.
Okay? And I don't want to pull a specific segment of the user group out and say that they don't do anything for the resource, but honestly, commercial fishermen as a whole, as a general blanket statement, do zero good for the fishery.
No.
Because they don't put back into the fishery. They're not practicing catch and release. They're very I would hazard a guess and say that when it comes to conservation, as Pastor Paul was saying, when it comes to conservation, those guys are not members of CCA.
No.
Those guys are not donating to the clam restoration project.
No.
Those guys are not helping with trying to catch redfish or whatever species trout and help the hatcheries be able to spawn them so that they can restock them. Those guys are take. And when I'm done taking, I'm going to take some more.
Yeah, I'm going to take some more. I'm going to go to the next section.
Yeah. And once I have completely raped this piece of water, I'm going to go to the next piece, and I'm going to completely rape it. And, that's a cynical view to look at. But honestly, I haven't seen a single commercial harvester do anything any different than that.
No.
So if there's a guy out there who's a commercial guy and he's given back to CCA and he's practicing catch and release,
if he's not depleting an entire school because,
call us and let us know.
Yeah,
let us know if
please.
there's at least one of you guys out there. But honestly, I just don't think I don't think it's a thing.
Yeah.
Because if they don't take it to the fish market, they don't get $1 for it. And if they don't get $1 for it, they don't get paid.
Yeah.
They can't pay the electric bill, can't buy groceries. So, I mean, I get the need to take what you're going to take to get the dollar amount, but there is no reprieve for those fisheries whatsoever. They just hammer them until they're unsustainable and gone. Look at it. The scallop industry.
Yeah.
Off of Port Canaveral. The Royal Red shrimp fishery off of Port Canaveral. The oyster fishery in the Banana River and Indian River. The clam fishery in the Indian and Banana River. I mean, there's just 4 off the top of my head where commercial harvesters decimated the population of those species and then of course if you throw netting, when netting was allowed before the net ban,
redfish.
if they were hammering the schools of redfish and depleting all the redfish. So I mean, there's 5 species just off the top of my head, and I don't think that any of those guys donated any money back to CCA or to a restocking program.
And how much money would they have to donate to equal what they've
taken? That's a good question.
Because if you and I go out there, if you catch 1 fish, you get paid the same.
Right.
If you catch 30 fish, you get paid the same. You might get a little better tip, but
the pay is the same.
The pay is the same. So, and it's funny. People are like, well, why don't you do commercial fit? Why don't you sell? I don't want to.
No.
I don't want my income to rely on what I catch. I want my income to rely on the amount of fish I show my clients, the amount of clients have a good time, because it's easier for me to please a client on the front of the boat than it is for me to go out there in the nasty weather, deplete a fishery. I think about 2006.
Well, let's hold that thought.
Okay.
We're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk about 2006 right after this break with Captain Mike Mann and myself, Jim Ross. So don't go away. We're back with Captain Mike Mann and myself, Jim Ross, in the studio. If you want to give us a call, 321-632-1000. That's 321-632-1000. You can get us right here at our studio in Cocoa. We'd love to hear from you, see if you've been out catching some fish lately. You know, Mike, you were talking about in 2006 what was occurring.
Yeah. Well, so I would leave, pick up my clients, and there'd be a clamor over there. There'd be a clamor on this bar. There'd be a clamor on the next bar down. There were the guys with the hookahs out, in the main. And there were oyster guys. There were schools of hundreds of redfish. Trout, basically, all you had to do was go find, 3-4 foot of grass.
3-4 foot of water with grass and just stop.
And just start throwing jigs. Yeah. And you would, so then everything changed. But these guys don't understand that when the fishery changes, you have to adapt and you have to change. I adapted for a couple of years. I spent a lot of time targeting mangrove snapper if my guys wanted something to eat. Yep. And, then the black drum fishery exploded. And, my first 10, 12 years guiding, this is my 26th year, my first 10, 12 years guiding, I may have caught 3-4 black drum. Never saw a school of black drum. Then about 2012, I'm not sure what year they redid all the culverts in the duck ponds. But once they did that, that allowed this massive influx of black drum into the lagoon. And suddenly there's 5,000 black drum up on Tiger Shoals that were spawning. This time of year, you'd find them up in there. And it was insane. I saw a school, and I had, I can't think of his name. He was a fly guy, and he's an older gentleman, friends with Lefty. He's friends with Bob Klauser, those guys. I wish Joe Zimmer was his name. I pull him up, and he goes, oh, my God. There was a school of black drum from Airplane all the way up to the entrance on the south end, probably 40 feet wide.
Holy cow.
It was...
That's a couple hundred yards.
Oh, yeah, it was. And it was just as many black... I've never seen a school that size ever in my entire life. I saw it that one day. We worked the outside of it. Somebody else poled up into them. They went everywhere. But, there used to be 15 schools. Once they broke up, there were 15 schools all over Tiger. And then those guys got netted.
Yeah.
And then it went from, 5,000, 3,000, 2,000. Now there's hardly anything up on Tiger as far as black drum now. It's, the guys netting it wiped it out. And I'm not convinced that they didn't do seine netting on it, that they were actually running a net.
Well, you know as well as I do that there are still guys that are running
gill nets. Oh, yeah.
Gaines Slough.
Yeah.
I've seen a gill net stashed in the bushes on the west side of Gaines Island and Gaines Slough.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of them up a little farther, up on the slippery flat area. Yeah. Where they try and stash them in, they use the net at night.
Yeah.
They load the fish in the boat and then they take the net and they go stash it in the bushes.
Yeah.
Well, at night you can't necessarily stash it as good as you could in the daytime.
You think you can?
So I come poling down or trolling motoring down that edge, and all of a sudden I'm like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
And so you give FWC a call and you say, "Hey, somebody's got a gill net stashed up here in the mangroves."
Yeah, they're like, "Well, I can't get to it right now." There's probably 5 times where I've just gone over and start cutting.
There's an easy way to get an immediate response.
What's that?
I think there's a manatee tangled in it.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. I think I may have seen a manatee tangled in the gill net.
Yeah.
And this is the GPS pin I'm going to send you. Yeah. That gets an immediate response.
I like that.
You have to up the priority level.
Yeah, I like it. I haven't heard a whole lot about manatee deaths with this winter.
No, I think because the the duration was so short
Yeah.
of the cooler water. 2 weeks is not enough time to kill them for the most part.
Yeah.
I can tell you what, the Indian River,
Yeah.
they started flooding out of the power plant about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, about 3 days ago. And they are from Cocoa to Titusville. They are everywhere right now. Just everywhere.
I was just thinking
So
the other
be
day.
very
running,
careful if anywhere between 520 Causeway and the Parish Park boat ramp, be very careful in that section of the river because there are hundreds and hundreds of manatees.
But there's only
in that
3,500 in the state.
Well, I think there's 3,000 of them in that section of river right now. I mean, they're thick.
Yeah. I was running the other day and I was thinking, I went by a spot and I'm like, I felt myself looking for them because I know it's a spot that sometimes they'll hang out. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I don't have to worry about manatees
Not yet.
right
Not
now.
yet.
Another week
You know
we
my
will.
spot?
Yeah.
My spot that I cringe when I run through it this time, any time of the year, really, is the bottom turn. It's slippery right there next to Cockroach Island.
Yep.
That, That bottom turn is, especially on low water, and I'm jack plated up.
Yeah.
And I know that there's only a 2.5, 3 boat width wide slot for me to run through there. And if somebody else is coming the other way, it's a close rub rail to rub rail kind of a passing. But that bottom turn is slippery
Because you can't stop.
No, yeah, not in the
Not in the
Skeeter.
No.
No, sir. You stop there, you're done.
But my pucker up spot is between Middle Island and George's Bar.
Oh, that's yeah.
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 That's like my pucker spot.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's just idle. We're just gonna idle around through here.
Yep.
There and then Whiskey Point, off of Whiskey Point. But
Yep.
anywhere trying to run through shotgun, you're like
Jack played up.
tilt them up. And I talked to Brian Clancy. He goes, "No, I just run it down." I said, "No. Jack it up and tilt your motor as much as you can run.
Way out.
Because if it's tilted out, that fin's at an angle, so it skips versus slam.
Yep.
Use the fin for what it's for.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's there are a couple of places in the lagoon when the water's low that there's some serious pucker factor going on. That's for sure. Well, you know what? Let's take a next break. Get that out of the way because we've got a caller on the line, and we're going to get right to that caller in just a second. Don't go away. Captain Mike Mann and myself, Jim Ross, will be right back after these messages with more Catch a Memory Outdoors. Every Saturday right here to Catch a Memory Outdoors. Now, remember, it's still bug season. It's always bug season because we live in Florida, right? So those bugs are still trying to get in the house, even though it's starting to cool. Starting to warm up a little bit. It's not as cool. They're not trying to get in some of that heater that you've been running in your house. They're still kind of meandering around, checking out what's going on around the house. And you know as well as I do, this was the first week of warm-up after the cold front. What happens the first week of warm-up after the cold front?
Oh, they get active.
Fire ants.
Fire ants are popping up.
Fire ants are everywhere. So guess
Especially
what?
with no rain.
Guess what? My backyard's got fire ants. So I'm going to call my guy Chad over at Sun State Pest Management and say, Chad, bring some of that ant chow. Bring some on over here and sprinkle a little ant chow on these guys.
There is.
Long story short, there's bugs all the time. You're constantly battling some kind of bug in the state of Florida. Get a qualified professional company like Sun State Pest Management to come handle your pest problems. Super easy to get a hold of them. Just call them at 800-781-7378. That's 781-7378. Easy to get them over to the house. Let them feed the ants that you have popping up, the roaches, the spiders, the whatever else you might happen to have hanging around your place. And you know what else? It's almost flea season again, too.
Oh, yeah.
So if you got pets, now's a great time to ask them when it's time to get the lawn sprayed and make sure that you're keeping that at bay. We don't like putting pesticides down just to arbitrarily put them down because we all know that they wash into the lagoon system, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So have them come over, put the proper type and the proper amount for your particular pest problem, and that way you know you're doing the best possible job that you can to keep the lagoon healthy and to keep the pests from keeping you from enjoying your yard or being in your house.
Keep your pets from getting bit.
Exactly. Sun State Pest Management. Give them a holler. Hey, we're going to go to the phone lines. Captain Alex Gurvitsky's on the line. Good morning, buddy.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
What are we doing at Local Lines Fishing Charters this morning?
I am driving in my truck to Titusville, right up on Garden Street, to the park right there.
Gotcha. What do we got going on today?
Well, there's actually a event for the lagoon and the IRL Clam Project, which I'm supporting and working with,
Yep.
is supplying some of the clams for the Save Our Indian River Lagoon project's celebration of 100 completed projects.
I was reading some of the things that have been completed over the past, 6 years, 7 years now?
Yeah, 6 or 7.
It is amazing the amount of work that has been done. When you look at stormwater retention areas that have been developed and implemented so that the stormwater isn't going directly into the lagoon like it used to. It's going into holding and retention ponds and things of this nature to try and help it settle out a little bit, get some of those contaminants to fall out. When you look at the baffle boxes that they're putting on some of the storm drains in places where they don't have ability to create a retention pond, or some kind of a settling pond, if you will, and then the muck dredging. The muck dredging projects, Cocoa Beach alone, just the Cocoa Beach Canal System, they took out 300,000 cubic yards of muck. Think about that. 300,000 cubic yards of muck was taken out of that.
That's insane.
And so we went from water that looked like a yoo-hoo, pretty much year-round, when it didn't have that yellowish, funky mustard color kind of going on around it, to now that water has gotten beautiful and clean, and we're starting to see grass regrowth in that area, and we're starting to see fish come back to that area, which, when you look at what the Save Our Indian River Lagoon, the Sorrel money, the Save Our Indian River Lagoon half-cent sales tax has been able to fund, that's amazing. And Alex, to be able to celebrate 100 completed projects, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. It's hard unless you actually take the time to look to understand what's being done, because it's not right in your face. It's not in your own backyard necessarily, even though it truly is. It's a situation where you actually have to look for the information. You got to kind of figure out, okay, this is what they put it out there, but you got to look, and there really has been a lot of work done, and there's a lot of people working hard to try to make a difference and try to change things. So
it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, and that's what a lot of all this money. Go ahead.
I hate to step on you, but our late dear friend Rodney Smith, years ago, and I'm talking almost a decade ago, or a little less, when I started getting really active as an advocate. He actually took me to the side and said, "You need to pace yourself if you're going through this, and you're really true to what you're about to do. Because this is a marathon; it ain't a sprint, and you're going to be here for a while."
Yeah. And Rodney was the OG, not just an OG guide, fishing guide in this area for the second half of the decade. The last decade, the second half of last century, I should say, because Rodney was one of those guys who started way back in the 80s guiding, and he was probably the first guy that I'm aware of who was like, "Hey guys, the lagoon's in trouble. The lagoon's in trouble, and we need to do something about it." And in the first couple of years that I was around Rodney, it was, Rodney's kind of a Chicken Little, man. He's all about the sky is falling. And, heck, we're still catching 50 redfish and 100 trout every, 3 times a week. Well, if I would have taken the steps then, like Alex is saying, if we would have all taken the steps then, we would have never seen that 2016 through 2018-19 nightmare of what this lagoon was having to go through.
I used to call him Reverend Rodney. I'd be like, Reverend Rodney's on the show, because he was always on his pulpit. And Rodney, you were right, brother.
He was.
You were right, man.
He was right.
And what people don't understand is it got worse slowly till it hit a point where did everything
Total
go?
collapse.
But it's done the same thing where it's gotten a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. Oh my God, there's it's not what it was, but it's definitely signs of hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're coming right behind me.
So, Alex, talking about getting better, I know that you've been out doing a lot of your kayaking events or kayaking charters here lately. And I know that you've been getting a lot of juvenile snook and tarpon and things of that nature. So, you've seen these projects that don't really make the headlines all the time, but you've seen firsthand what it's doing to the fishery.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And anybody who's really truly spending day in and day out on the water has seen it. It's again one of those things. It's hard to quantify unless you see it every day. The microscopic changes of there's sprigs of grass in this area when truly 6 months ago there wasn't. And you know that because your own eyes are seeing it, or even on the bad side, hey, this area is still not looking so great, so we got to really do what we can to kind of maybe focus on it or something like that. And really what it is, end all be all, is knowledge is power.
Yes,
and the more you know, the better you can help any situation. And truly involving yourself is really takes nothing more than saying, I'm going to involve myself in this, and I'm going to do everything I can to try to at least not necessarily come up. You're not going to replace the septic tanks and swap it out for sewer in your entire neighborhood because you feel like doing it today. But you know what you can do today? You can get yourself some knowledge. You can get up. You can come to an event like this. There's going to be information tables all over to learn what all these different programs are. Everybody has volunteer opportunities.
Yes.
From us at the IRL Clam Project to the New Swell Mangrove stuff to the zoo to everybody has opportunities to get involved. And the more you feel like being involved, the more you get involved.
Yeah.
And, I actually just pulled into the event site right now, and the Save Our Lagoon tent's going up in the center, and the vendors are starting to show up now, and the clams are on their way. If you get a chance, come down here. We're going to be here from 10. The clam release is at 10:30 promptly. And we're going to be going all the way till about 2:30. Around noon, you have some speakers coming up to tell you about some of the projects and what's going on, and how you can get involved and how you can help.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's going to be a good day, and that's at Sandpoint Park in Titusville, correct?
Yep, Sandpoint Park in Titusville, and like I said, promptly at 10:30, we're going to be doing that clam release. So if you want to help put some clams in the river, come on down. And what it's going to be is there's going to be a drone demonstration, and that's what we do to broadcast the clams on sandbars and such. We also do different methods with building beds with clam bags and also nets. But what it is the event is clams across the lagoon, and they're going to be going up on the causeway and just symbolically, releasing some clams off the causeway there, and just to kind of kick off the hey, we're doing it, and come on with us kind of feeling to the situation, and celebrate that 100 projects, because that's a big thing. When we sat there 10 years ago, when everything went brown and it looked as bleak as it possibly could, if you had even a slight knowledge of Ambria laginis, the brown algae, and what it's done to other areas and what it had in store for us, you knew it was a long road ahead. And for our county to actually step up and do something about that, and come to the plate, and it was every one of us that did that. We voted it in, and it's actually doing stuff. And I know it's hard to tout government and use of tax funds, because typically it's not that way.
Yeah, typically it's squandered and spent foolishly.
Right.
Let's do.
But
Right.
but this program has been it's been the catalyst and the driving force. I mean, it's been the nitrous oxide in the drag racer to get this thing going at full speed.
Right. Absolutely. So it's been it's hard to scream success when anybody knows that 6 months from now it could go brown again.
Yep.
Or there's no doubt going to be more releases from more sewage plants. These things are going to continue to happen, but again, the more you know, the better you can act and react, and the more education you have on the scenario, the better off you are. And just that's all I can implore anybody, or really strive to get anybody to get out of hearing this, or even coming down here and getting some information at the event. It's just get yourself informed, and if you have the ability or the want, get active. All you got to do is get active. Believe me, you can find yourself something to get into. I seem to be able to find myself something to do for the lagoon. I don't know how I get myself into all these situations, but here we are, and this is what I do, and it's who I am. And I grew up with it. You grew up with it. You guys have seen it, and man, I just want my grandkids to see it.
Exactly. One last thing, for people showing up today to watch the flying deer feeder, is what I call it, the clam spreader, the drone operated clam spreader. This thing is absolutely incredible. But
it's pretty bad.
Is there an opportunity for people, if you just stopped by and said, "Hey, I want to donate to the clam restoration project"? Is there an opportunity for people to just drop a 20 in a bucket, drop something on, in the plate, if you will, to try and help the clam project even further enhance the clam population throughout the lagoon system?
Oh, absolutely. We'll have the donation bucket sitting there, and we have, of course, Blair's going to be here, and we'll have Dr. Todd on site in the booth, ready to answer any questions. Corey's going to be here, of course, and we've got a bunch of mangroves hanging out. So, yeah, if you guys get up here, and you can definitely get that for sure.
Awesome, buddy. Well, thank you so much for the call in this morning.
Thanks for calling in.
Absolutely.
And thank you,
Yeah,
Alex.
you guys have a good one.
Well, and thank you,
Catch
Alex,
out there, you guys.
for everything that you have done personally to help promote lagoon cleanup. Talk about hands-on, getting knee-deep in the water to do it. You're one of those guys who has been relentless in the pursuit of changing the course of this lagoon system and the health of it. So thank you very much to you, too.
Well, I appreciate that very much. You guys have a good one.
All right,
Take
buddy.
care, Alex.
Take care. Hey, gang, we're going to take our next break. When we come back, Captain Mike, Mann, and myself have a whole lot more Catch a Memory coming at you, so don't go away. This segment of the show is brought to you by Engel Coolers, and last week they had a huge Engel Cooler sidewalk sale. Hopefully some of you guys and gals got to take advantage of that, but all kinds of overstocks, blims where they had like slight color mismatches between the cooler lid and the cooler body and different things like that, dents where it maybe got dropped off the pallet or something. Anyway, all of these things were up to 60% off last week. So if you got a chance to get involved with that, man, that great for you. But if you didn't and you need an Engel cooler, guess what? They've got them sitting there every day waiting for you, and they will ship them right to your door. EngelCoolers.com, or you can go to one of your local retailers and find them there. Mike, we were talking about the black drum, and they have, in the last 7 or 8 years, they have become a staple of our fishery, and we've had to change our fishing patterns to chase those fish.
Yeah.
Because, like you say, it was pole, redfish, maybe trout, drop off the edge, trout, go back to the dock.
Yeah.
Then there was no redfish to pole for, and there was no grass for the trout to sit in off the edge. So it became a function of, if I'm going to continue to be a guide, I've got to find something to put a bend in this rod.
30 catfish to 1 redfish.
Yeah, and that was not what we wanted to be doing. So we had to diversify more. And the one thing that I can say that is good about our lagoon system and the cycles of good and bad that we've seen in the past 30 years is that it's made me and you and everybody else that is a full-time fishing guide. It's made us better fishermen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no
There's
doubt.
Unquestionably made us better fishermen because we've had to go find this next species and then figure out how to catch this next species. And, the first couple of years it was tough because it was like, man, I've only chased these fish and occasionally come across these fish. But now the fish I was chasing are gone, and the fish that I was only occasionally seeing, they're still here. I've got to go figure out how to target them. So putting those pieces of puzzle together is one of the things that, that has been intriguing to me in the last 7, 8, 9 years. But one of the things that I have done, and I've been able to capitalize this year better than any other year, is on the black drum, because we're finding where they like to winter, and then where they like when they come out of that cold water shell, if you will, and they start getting back out. There are very select places where they like to be, and for very specific reasons. And so this week has been a week of trying to implement a game plan that targets around black drum.
Yeah.
And for me, it's been a very successful week.
Yeah, me as well. It's been
So I've been very, very happy with what I've been, starting on Monday, I found a school of 50-ish fish. Well, Tuesday, I didn't fish. Wednesday, there were 100 fish in the school. And then Thursday and Friday, there were about 250 fish in the school. And just following, that pattern, watching the fish come out of their deep water areas and come into these shallow water areas. I shouldn't say shallow, because the fish that we're fishing for are 45 and 50 pound black drum.
Yeah.
So we're fishing them off edges, but if you guys and gals just think about this, find a hole, find an area that has deeper water, and then find an area adjacent to it that has 3 to 6 feet of water, like along a drop off. You're coming out of 8 or 10 feet of water into 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, but mainly 3, 4, 5 feet of water, not necessarily in less than 2 feet of water, if you will. These bigger fish are throughout the lagoon system, and I found a couple of different places where they were holding. And this one particular place this year, I went and checked it, and the population of the school has grown all week long, which, when you look at this pattern coming together, it's been pretty impressive. I've been very, very fortunate to keep logs on how, when, where, and why. And I told my customers the very first day, he says, what are we going to catch? And I said, well, I'm hoping that this is going to be the day that they start doing this. And so they're going to come out of the deeper areas, and they're going to get into some of these shallower areas. So that was this week's pattern. And to see that come to fruition with yesterday, we hooked probably 20 fish. Now, the problem with 50-pound black drum is that when you hook one, you can't pull him. He doesn't just come out of the school.
Yeah.
He stays in the school.
There's a lot of sharp things on the other ones.
He stays in the school for 10 or 15 minutes before you can physically pull him out, because they're that big and that strong. So you break a lot of fish off. You pull a lot of hooks. You straighten a lot of hooks. I've had more hooks straightened in the last 2 days than I have, in the last 3 months.
Yeah.
But when you find these bigger schools of fish, you can stay with them most of the day as long as you don't pressure them too hard. You can stay with them most of the day and continually get new shots at them. And that's the nice thing about drum in comparison to redfish. Redfish will give you shot 2, 3, 4. By about shot 8 or 9, they're
School's
done with
gone.
you, and they're like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
We're leaving. The drum are more tolerant than that. And so that's the one thing that I can say about targeting black drum, is that you have a longer duration to fish those fish in most cases, even if you have unfortunate things like break-offs or pulled hooks happen.
Yeah. And, going back to, you mentioned, fortunately, you kept logs. So one of the things I did this week, when we finally got the right conditions, and I had sunny skies, and I had light winds, and I had clients that have been fishing with me for 2 weeks off and on. So I'm like, let's go, so trying to find something different. I go, let's go check some areas that I went back and looked at my logs from 8-10 years ago.
Exactly.
Where there hadn't been fish there the last 4 or 5 years, or hadn't been many. And so I'm finding schools of fish back in places 10 years ago I was fishing in that I haven't seen in a while, especially redfish.
Yeah.
But I'm also finding black drum in those spots because we got cool enough water. We had a period with cold enough water. We've had extremely low water. I mean, crazy low water. Yeah. And we finally got the conditions right where it's like, well, they're, because for the first, from 2000 till about 2015, I knew, okay, well, it's January. I'm going to go to this point. There's going to be a school of redfish sitting there. Then I'll go around. I'll go hit this flat. There's a little deep. There's going to be a school of redfish sitting there. By then, maybe I might run over to another island. We're going to hit. There's going to be some redfish sitting there. You didn't have to see them because every morning for 2 months, they were sitting there. If the water was a little high, they might be here. If the water was low, they would be here. You didn't have to rely on sight fishing. You just had the faith that they were there. They've been there for 2 months. Yeah. And that, we lost that for a while. And seeing that, I mean, I was going back and checking places I haven't fished in years because they just haven't produced, and those fish are back where they used to be.
Yeah.
And it's nice seeing that. It's nice being able to pull out some of my old haunts that I really there's places you enjoy fishing because of whatever. You enjoy the topography, you enjoy that pulling that area, you enjoy whatever. The being able to get away from other boats.
You struck a nerve right there with me because there are points, specific points.
You love to fish.
That I love to fish.
Yeah.
I'm like, as I'm polling to it, I'm getting excited for my customers because I'm like, okay, guys, get ready.
Yeah.
Because there's two sand holes off. There's some grass in here, and there's two little sand holes. And if you target these two sand holes off at this point, we're gonna catch a fish out of each one of these. And 9 times out of 10, you at least get a bump.
Oh
you may not get the hookup, but you get the bait gets bumped, and you're like, he was there.
Oh,
he was there, and oh man, you just nailed it for me. Where there's some specific spots that I just love like that.
Because we find areas that for whatever reason they mean something to us.
Yeah.
Whether it's we caught our first redfish there, we put our clients on their biggest redfish there, or it's one of those areas you've been able to drift up to and save a really tough day, make it a little bit better, and being able to go back to some of those areas. I mean, I've been excited fishing, and it was a challenging 2 weeks because I had the same people, and I love them. They're great clients, but I had trying to find something different to do every day for 8 days with 2 guys. It gets a little challenging because it's like, well, let's go. All right. I don't want to go there because I just had them there yesterday. Yep. So we started, just hitting some of the new spots, and it was a lot of fun.
That's cool. Well, guys and gals, first hour of Catch a Memory has flown by. We got a whole nother hour coming right back at you. I'm Captain Jim Ross, and I've got Captain Mike Mann in the studio with me. For those of you that are just tuning in, you can also watch the show on Facebook Live if you are interested in that. Want to say good morning to a couple of guys that are out here on Facebook Live. We got a lot of guys calling in this morning. We got Darren Bolton is in this morning, Sean Scribner Sr., Brian Howe, Butch McCoy is in, giving us the thumbs up this morning. Hopefully he'll give us the Pompano report here pretty soon. It should. Is she? Yeah. Carl Harmering's on this morning. Good morning, buddy. Shay Hobby, Jesse Dance. Who else have we got here? James Thier, Calvin Hall, Don Adams, David Giovannini, just tons of guys on this morning. Angelo Gilvery's on with us this morning. Tons of guys watching this morning. Patty and Jay Bowie. Don the Snake Guy is on with us. Dan Boone, good morning, sir. Coastal Flow in the house, it looks like. Donald Waberman's on as well. Joe Kennedy, thank you so much for tuning in. And, with the Facebook feed, obviously that stays on the Facebook page, so you guys can always go go back there and listen or watch the show over again whenever you get the opportunity. We were talking, Mike, about how the fishery has changed over the years, how we're coming back into a season of prosperity, if you will. In my opinion, a season of prosperity. We've got tons of juvenile trout that are showing up. Those trout are only going to grow, get bigger. This past week, since the super cold weather, I've been finding along the edges of the mangroves good numbers of 12, 13, 14-inch redfish, which are obviously, a good sign. We've got those juvenile redfish showing back up again. Plenty of black drum along the shorelines, plenty of bigger black drums schooling out on the deeper edges of the flats. And the snook, there are areas from Port Orange all the way down to Sebastian. There are areas where in some cases there are 30 and 40 snook grouped up in pods in these little back canals, back hidey holes, river mouths, creek mouths, things like this, places that they're going to eventually kind of trickle out and kind of spread along that shoreline. But seeing them and knowing, just counting the number of fish that are there is exciting, whether they're eating or not. And right now, snook bite's not been fantastic this week, obviously. All of the snook that I've seen are as black as coal right now.
Yeah.
They are not happy with the water temperature. They're not very happy about wanting to chase anything right now. But it's only going to be a matter of another couple of days
before
somebody's going to flip that snook switch, and they're going to start.
And what's today?
Today's the 1st.
February 1st.
Yep. 18 years ago today, my dad passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Yep.
5 years ago, a week from now,
So that's a bittersweet memory for me.
Yeah.
The memory of my dad was, I love my dad. He did a lot for me. Taught me the difference in right and wrong, if nothing else.
I remember that.
But it's also our dog Skeeter's birthday today.
Well, so there you go.
So it's a celebration in two regards. One, that my dad's up in heaven, and second, that our dog's birthday is today, and he's I'm sure my wife's going to do something special for him.
God, we've known each other a long time.
I'm
like, because I remember when your dad passed away, and I'm like, oh God.
Yeah, 18 years ago.
Yeah, because I don't even remember where we met. I think we were doing
probably a seminar series.
I think we were doing a seminar series or something, and we met, and it was because I know it's been probably 24, 25 years.
Yeah.
You know what? I think I remember what it was. It was a grand opening and the place isn't even open anymore, for a sports authority in Daytona Beach.
Should have been.
I think you and I met there.
Or a boater's world in Daytona Beach.
Could have been Boaters World. I think it was.
It was one of those two.
Yeah, I think it. And that place is closed. It closed 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But I think there was a grand opening. They just opened the first sports authority in Daytona Beach, right over off International. And I think you and I were both in there doing seminars for it. we had our little tables out front with, our paraphernalia and talking with each other. And, I'd probably only been in the game a few years. I'd come from from tournament fishing to guiding. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, nice to meet you. I was just, just happy to be invited to something.
Longevity in the game. That's what we definitely have. That is for sure. Longevity in the game. You were just talking a little bit ago about before the wind started blowing, how you had a decent offshore bite.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've had some very, very cold water temperatures in the lagoon. We've had some very, very cold water temperatures along the beach. Here's one of the things that I'm really excited about this year. I'm excited for a potential good and maybe even great cobia season.
Yes.
Spring cobia season.
Yes.
With the water temperature at the 20-mile buoy going all the way down to 71 degrees, the 20-mile buoy off of Canaveral, going all the way down to 71. The Ponce buoy going all the way down to 56 or 57.
It's cold.
The 4-mile inshore buoy going down to 56. And the Fort Pierce buoy going all the way down to 59. So that near shore body of water along the east central part of the state all got below the Cobia threshold.
Yeah.
So that tells me that when you find, we always talk about that area of water that has the potential. And that area of water that has the potential right now basically starts at about the 20-mile buoy at Canaveral.
Yeah.
Push that into as far as you can go west, towards shore. Hopefully that's covering 8A Reef.
Yeah.
Okay. That's 70 to 90 foot-ish line. Because cobia really are reef fish. They're not necessarily free-swimming, manta ray following fish.
Yeah.
They do that. That's an anomaly. That's a thing that they do. But the majority of your cobia are going to be over some sort of structure.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I look at that bubble of 68-degree water, 68 and to 72-degree water, I look at the 20-mile buoy coming westward until I hit, hopefully, 8A, south through Pelican Flats, maybe even including the 21-fathom ridge, okay, if you will, and following that down through South Pelican, through, the High Bar, through the Pines outside of Sebastian, through Bethel Shoal, all the way, keep following that temperature / structure overlay.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there,
there's a big mass.
There's a big mass of cobia.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm excited about. Now, if the water inshore warms up and the manta rays and the bait pods show up, then the cobia will show up inshore. But for the most part, I mean, you still need to keep in mind that cobia are a reef-oriented species. And so if you find that bubble of water, like if you're a guy that fishes out of ponds right now, you're probably not catching cobia, okay? Most likely. You may get one or two, but most likely you're not going to be in the main part of the biomass. If you're a trailer boat guy, my buddy Chris Gillespie as an example. He's got a 31 Cape Horn, pulls it all over the state to go fishing. He's one of the guys that takes advantage of living in a state like we live in and having the ability to trailer. He'll pull his boat down to Fort Pierce. He'll take it up to St. Augustine. He'll go to the West Coast and grouper fish off of the Crystal River area.
Yeah.
So here's a guy. He's living up around DeLand, and he's going to put the boat on he's got the boat on the trailer. He's going to hook up. He's going to pull down and go out Sebastian or Fort Pierce and go find those fish, because water temperature and water depth. When you overlay structure with the proper temperature, you're going to find those fish. And so that's what I would encourage everybody to do.
Do the research.
More of that. If you keep going back to the same boat ramp and same boat ramp and same boat ramp, you're only going to catch the available fish that's around that boat ramp. But with a trailer boat, pull an extra 30 minutes or an extra hour, and now you're in a completely different water scenario and a completely different catch opportunity for yourself. And so, one of the things that I like to do is I fish from basically Wabasso all the way up to Southbridge at New Smyrna.
Yeah.
I mean, I cover a pretty big
You've got a big
swath,
range.
But when you look at that, there's specific reasons that I fish specific pieces of water at specific times of the year. And it's because that's where the bite is.
Yeah.
I'm not satisfied with just going to the local boat ramp and putting my boat in and running down the way and going, we only caught 4 fish today. I would rather trailer an hour and say, hey, we caught 40 fish today.
Yep.
That's, that to me.
And it makes you a better fisherman because you know more areas. You're figuring out different types of structure, because the fishing in the North Mosquito Lagoon is completely different than the South Mosquito Lagoon.
Yeah.
It's completely different from like Scottsmore area, completely different fishing. And the further south you go, the difference changes. St. Augustine, completely different fishery. And so it makes you a better fisherman. It's very similar, like when I was on the bass tour, I would fish different lakes. And even though there are things I like to fish, bass fishing, I love a rubber worm. Love a rubber worm. But some lakes, it's not as productive as throwing like a crankbait working crankbaits or spinner baits or topwaters. I love topwater too, but so when you're doing the type of fishing you're doing and you have such a wide area, it makes you a better angler. It hones and rounds your skills.
Yeah. So I would encourage everybody to, look at what your temperatures are, look at those buoys, find the nearest piece of structure, and go out and do some exploring this spring in particular. Because, as an example, if I'm a guy that lives so I live in Rockledge, okay? If the temperature all of a sudden becomes right out of Fort Pierce, I'm an hour and 40 minutes to the boat ramp and in the water and idling out the inlet, okay? I'm 20 minutes from the fish.
Yeah.
Once I get on plane, I'm 20 minutes at most from the fish. Now, I can idle for an hour and run for 20 minutes and then fish for the next 5 or 6 and then put it back on the trailer and come back home. Or I can go out of Canaveral and I can run all over the ocean and catch nothing.
And spend twice as much fuel.
Spend twice as much in fuel and come back in. So it's the same amount of time that you're allotting to going fishing, but you're in a much more productive area. So I encourage everybody to, if you like doing that kind of thing, if you like chasing the cobia, if you like chasing the tarpon up and down the beach like we do, we trailer to the fish and make the boat ride as short as possible and try and put ourselves in as high a probability scenario that we can.
And you know what you can do if you don't have your own boat? You can call Jimmy to go in his area.
Yeah.
Then you could call me to go up in my area.
And that's a great thing. Getting a guide is a great way to, ramp up your skill set and make that learning curve a whole lot better.
And if you have a guide that you enjoy fishing with in your area, but you're going somewhere else and you're not sure who to use, call your guide you use. We all have friends that are very similar because we all get along. We all do things a little differently, but we do things very similarly too. And we will hook you up with someone who's kind of more what you're accustomed to. I'm not going to send you with somebody that yells at you because I don't yell at my clients.
Right.
But, I've got some clients that like to be yelled at. It's weird.
Well, guys and gals, we're going to take our next break. When we come back, we got a whole lot more Catch a Memory with Captain Mike Mann and myself, Jim Ross. So don't go away. We're going to be right back after these messages. Petrucci Insurance. And guess what, boys and girls? Get ready because the updates are not looking good. I just got my renewal for my house, and I'm up another $800 and something again this year. So, obviously, Petrucci Insurance handles my insurance. I got my initial offer, if you will, from the insurance company. We'll go back. We'll fine-tune this and that because the insurance company likes to bump your rates so that they get more money out of you. Oh. And you don't necessarily need the amount of coverage in some cases. In my case, I don't need some of the coverages that they're trying to get me covered on. So long story short is call Petrucci Insurance, have them do a rate quote check for you. Make sure that your coverage fits what it is you're trying to cover, whether it's your boat, whether it's your car, truck, whether it's your house. And then also they will check all of these other sources to see if they can find you a less expensive policy that has either the same coverage or in some cases, like when I first switched over to Petrucci, they saved me $800 a year based on the fact that I had a pretty good policy, but they found me a better policy for less money. $800. I don't know about you guys and gals out there, but $800 in your own pocket versus $800 in the insurance company's pocket.
Yeah.
That works for me.
That works a lot for me.
That's what I'm talking about.
Because I'm tired of my mortgage going up.
Right. And so have them do a rate quote. It's super easy to do. Just 321-632-1200. That's 321-632-1200. It's so easy to do it. You call them up, Virginia, Tony, whoever's in the office, they pick the phone up. You probably scan or fax over a copy of what you currently have. They'll go through it and say, hey, do you need all of these coverages, And if you don't need all of those coverages, they can adjust them just a little bit here and there. And then they can they can send out the proposals and see what comes back for you. And I'm telling you, if you don't do it, you can be paying thousands of dollars more than what you need to be paying every single year. And because your insurance company is not, bottom line,
You don't see insurance
the
companies going out of
insurance
business.
company is not looking out for your best interest. Bottom line.
Yeah.
Progressive,
You don't see 'em closing.
Geico, Allstate. I'll name you name one. They are not looking out for you. They're seeing how much they can get out of you so that they're looking out for themselves. That's what the insurance company does. And unfortunately, we need insurance. So you have a mediator, you have an intercessor, you have Petrucci Insurance to help you find the best possible policy. And that's exactly what they do for you. They go out there and they find the best possible rate and the best possible coverage to make sure that you're properly covered so that you're not getting overcharged or you're not overinsured or underinsured for your specific piece of property or vehicle or vessel that you're trying to cover. So bottom line, call them 321-632-1200. Start saving some money today. And here's the best part about Petrucci Insurance. Because they're an independent dealer or an independent agent, they are looking out for your best interest, not for the insurance company's best interest. So that's the whole reason that you call 632-1200, because they're looking out for you, because the insurance company
Is not.
So tell them you heard about it right here on Catch a Memory Outdoors. If you guys and gals get a chance, call them Monday morning, blow the phone up. Let them know that, hey, I need to get if you're coming up for renewal on your car, your truck, your boat, your house here in the next 2, 3, 4 months, get a jump on it now, kind of get some ideas. And by the time it comes to crunch time and you've got to sit down and actually write that check out, you know that you're writing the check out to the right company at that particular time or that particular point in time. And it can change from year to year. So, do it every single year. Trust me on this. Mike, we got to do the catch conditions because we got a whole lot of good stuff going on. This whole week, like we started the show off the first hour of the show. This whole week looks really good. Fishing and boating conditions look like this for today. We've got a west wind at 5 to 10. It may be a little gusty here first thing in the morning because we've got a front pushing over us. Yeah. So we may see some a little more intense winds than that, but it should settle back out, becoming north by this evening at 5 to 10. And seas inside of 20 miles are supposed to be 2 to 3 feet with a dominant period of around 5 seconds. Excuse me. The Ponce buoy right now, 58 degrees. Okay, so 3 feet at 5 seconds. Yeah. Not much fun. But the front this morning was right over Ponce Inlet. Yeah. So that's what we're talking about. You're going to see some little anomalies throughout the day as the front pushes through. But it should settle right back down. 4 mile buoy out of Canaveral, 60 degrees, 2 foot at 5 seconds. 20 mile buoy out of Canaveral, 73 degrees, up 2 degrees from last week. It was 71 last week, 73 this week. So somewhere between the 4 mile buoy and the 20 mile buoy,
there's a lot of brown clowns.
Should be some brown fish. Yeah. And then if you start following those structures, those reef lines to the south, somewhere in that area, you should find some cobia if you guys and gals are getting offshore. 6 mile buoy out of Fort Pierce is 74 degrees.
So I think they're going to be north
of
there.
So they should be a little north of there, theoretically. 2 feet at 9 seconds down there. It wasn't quite as windy down to the south as it was up to the north. So the period's a little bit different. Gulfstream, 43 nautical miles out of Ponce, 31 out of Canaveral, and 25 out of Sebastian. Current surf temps, we're looking at Ponce Inlet at 58, Cocoa Beach at 60, and Sebastian at 64. Tides at Port Canaveral, we've got a high tide coming up at 9:38 a.m., a low at 3:47 p.m., and a high again this evening at 10:04 p.m. And then the tides at Sebastian Inlet, we've got a high tide at 9:48 a.m., a low at 3:58 p.m., and a high again this evening at 10:14 p.m. Solar times, this is the best times, theoretically, based on the solar tables, that you should be out there on the water or in the woods if you're out pig hunting or doing some other kind of hunting that's in season right now. The best times to hunt and fish, brought to you by All About Archery down in Melbourne, are the major is from 2:26 to 4:26 p.m. this afternoon, and the minor is from 8:47 to 9:47 this morning. So just about 20, 25 minutes from now, we're going to see that minor kick in and should go for about an hour, maybe just a little bit longer. So that should give you some good opportunities to get out on the water and catch some fish. We've got a couple of minutes before the break. Let's see what Donald Waberman's up to.
Hey, good morning, Captain.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning?
All right. Just watching the show as I normally do, unless I'm out fishing. I was out a couple weeks ago on a Saturday and was out at Tarpon Springs, and it was very cool to see how healthy the grass was.
Well, that's
I haven't
encouraging.
seen grass that healthy in a long time. Catching some nice trout, up to 16 inches. Not big ones, but still fun. So, and,
Donald, have you seen a lot of smaller fish this year?
I have, which is a great sign.
That's encouraging. Yeah, Mike and I were both, we've both been talking about the number of small reds and small trout that we're seeing back in our lagoon systems over here on the East Coast, and that is so encouraging because that just means that the fish are starting to spawn again. The water quality is healthy enough for those, and there's enough food source for those smaller fish to actually start growing and feeding. And so we're really excited about the health of our lagoon getting better. And we're hoping that we start seeing some more seagrass show back up here as well.
Yeah, it has definitely shown up here on my side, so I was very excited to see that. I was watching a live fishing thing on TikTok yesterday of a couple guys out in Mosquito Lagoon, and they were catching some small snook and stuff and small reds, and I was talking to them, via the TikTok thing about CCA Star and CCA. I said, you guys are out there, you fish a lot, you need to become members.
Yeah.
Stuff. And they didn't even know about CCA, and mentioned that, said that your name, and one guy says, that name sounds familiar. I think I've heard about Captain Jim Ross. I said, well, you're on the coast, you should. So, but,
well, we appreciate.
So hopefully, got another couple of guys getting involved. Joining CCA and joining in the Star Tournament. Registration opened yesterday, so I am registered again. So even though the tournament hasn't started, so you catch a tagged redfish right now, you still get $1,000 Ingo Cooler package. So you can't beat that.
In fact, that's one of the things that I'm going to do today is get myself and my wife signed back up for that. We don't participate in it as much as we should. I could submit a whole lot more than what I do, but it's one of those things where supporting a good cause is more important to me than the actual prizes that come from it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's great for our fisheries and the conservation. Because my grandkids, especially Henry, I mean, he'll be I can't believe he's going to be 16 this July. But anyway, he landed his 18th different species when he was here in July, so I was very excited about that.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, they're not coming back until November, so that's very sad. I won't get him for the summer to go fishing, but when they come for Thanksgiving, I'm going to take him back out, and even though he's not fishing in Star because it'll already be over, I still sign him up because there's only a few dollars for the kids. Yeah. So it's worth it.
Yeah. Well, buddy, we're up against our next break. We appreciate the call in, and it's good to hear that you're having some success over there. Even though we've had some pretty nasty weather this last couple of weeks, it's good to see that you're getting back out and catching some fish again.
Yeah, it's no fun in the kayak when it's that cold and windy.
No, not at all.
That's the shit. Hey, you guys take care. Stay safe and tight lines.
Thanks, Donald. You too, buddy. Thank you so much.
Catch them up.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye now. Hey, gang, we're going to take our next break. When we come back, Mike, Mann, and myself, we got a whole lot more Catch Your Memory, so don't go away. Segment of the show is brought to you by Graphics Direct. If you need any kind of boat wrap, truck wrap, anything to create some kind of noticeability for your particular business, give Graphics Direct a call. Direct Graphics call. They're going to take care of you, build it for you, and they can print it and install it if you want it done as well. You need rack cards, business cards, banners, shirts. They build out all kinds of stuff for you and help you get noticed. And if you don't have a business, but you just like the way that a certain boat looks with a mural on the side of it, and you want to get one for yours as well, you can get a vinyl wrap to go on your boat, and customize your boat even more than what you have it. So super easy to get a hold of the guys over there at Direct Graphics. It's 321-631-1001. That's 631-1001, and let them take care of all of your particular promotional needs, if you will.
I've thought about getting the Hell's Bay wrap, just if nothing else, for the ease of clean.
Yeah.
I'm not even really worried. I don't want my advertising on it, but just changing the color a little bit and just wrapping the hull, because vinyl clean's pretty easy.
There's a lot of guys that have older hulls that, that they've faded or whatever, and there's a lot of guys that have actually put wraps around on their boat. Once change colors, do that sort of thing. I've seen quite a few.
For me, it's because I can hit it with Starbright hull cleaner, and it looks beautiful. But because it is a porous, in 2 weeks it's going to have gets brown again. And
speaking of that, we have our Starbright cleaning solution segment, and one of the things that we often overlook, Mike, and I know I'm guilty of this myself. I often overlook my bilge area. Okay. I mean, I'll take the hose and I'll kind of spray it down around in there, but I really don't keep it quite as clean as I probably should. Yeah. And so one of the things that I've started doing is I take the Power Pine bilge cleaner. I put it just like I'm going to mix a bucket of water to wash the boat with.
Yeah.
I put some in there and I fill my bucket about half full, and then I pour it down in a lot of the hatches and the little things that trickle down in through the hull and get into the bilge.
Yeah.
And kind of help get some soap and degreaser and kind of wash the interior of the hull out. And it's one of the things it's really started to make a difference, because I'm starting to see, you can get mold buildup really quickly.
Oh, yeah.
In a boat, especially as much as we use them, and they're never drying out because they're either in the water or you're washing them down after being on the water, and then you're back in the water the next day. And so they don't get a chance to truly, fully dry out, and so you start getting some of these issues. So I've been taking that, just dumping it down into my bilge area, and when my boat's on the trailer, I leave it with the tongue down, so it stays in the forward part of the bilge, and it can emulsify all of those things that are in there. And then when I hook it up to the boat, it normally drains out, and then or if I have the bilge plug out, it drains out the back. But it's just one of those things that's just keeping the bilge area cleaner, keeps it from corroding as much. It's just been it's one of those products that you don't think about every day.
Yeah.
It's not like your non-skid deck cleaner, but it's something that it's a really nice complement to keep parts of your boat that you're not necessarily staying, really attentive to, and helping them stay clean.
Because the Hell's Bay, I don't really have the ability to do that, but on my Panga, I mean, it's a big, it's a big under, and I always know, there's always a little bit of water runs out. I ain't even thought about that. I'll have to try some of that in there, because I can see when I look in there that you never want to go in your bilge, but occasionally you have to. You got to switch out pumps, and especially if it's something we do ourselves.
Or I open and close my seacocks a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if as an example, if I am not putting any bait in my front bait well, then I just close the seacock off, that way there's no water flowing through the pump and into the well.
Yeah.
So that saves my pump from sitting in salt water until I get a chance to rinse it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you forget because you didn't use that bait well, so you're like, okay, well, I didn't use it, I'm not going to rinse it.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't mean that while you were on plane running that water wasn't flowing up through it.
Oh, yeah.
So, and of course your impeller will rust and will fall off, as we all know. That's what they do. The motor might keep running, but the impeller's not there, so it's not pumping any water. Yep. So I'll shut my seacocks off. Or the other thing I'll do is I'll use my rear bait well sometimes as a fish box.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I want to put ice in there. I put my standpipe in it, and I want to put ice in there, and I want to put my fish in there. But then I shut the seacock off.
Because you don't want water flowing.
I don't want raw water flowing in whenever I've got ice in there, because I don't want it diluted. So those are two things in particular that I'm in my bilge quite a bit, opening and closing my seacocks.
My boat's not that fancy. I got one live well. I got one live well, so it's basically it's either running or I'm not using bait that day. And if I'm in that boat, there's always bait on the boat.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Well, one of the things that I have really started to rely on is when I first got it, I'd use it occasionally.
yeah,
Is my Engel bubbler. That
Yeah.
Engel dry box / cooler
yeah,
with the aerator on it. This new one with the lithium battery that this thing's got on it, it's you plug it in every 3 or 4 uses,
yeah.
and it runs all day. Creates plenty of bubbles. You don't have to worry about your batteries and changing out batteries and this and that. I get home and just like plugging in your cell phone, you plug in the aerator,
Really?
and you recharge it.
I
back up.
haven't gotten one of those yet.
It's
from Engel.
It's freaking awesome.
Because I was chasing down D batteries the other day,
Right. And so with my 19 quart, I can put 3, 4, 5, 6 dozen shrimp
Yeah.
in my 19 quart bucket. I've got the little insert that you pull out that's
Yeah.
got the little net, and so you can lift it up, grab the shrimp real easy, let it back down. And if the water's not cool enough, I can take a frozen water bottle and I can put a frozen water bottle in there to keep it cool. And I also put a little bit of like bait saver
Yeah.
in there, and that helps them stay lively longer. And sometimes, like yesterday, you open the lid and they're wanting to jump clean out of the thing. I've only got it half full of water.
Yeah.
And they're wanting to jump clean out of it. You're trying to chase them around the deck. I mean, they're so frisky, it's hard to even put them on a hook sometimes. But you throw that same thing in front of a fish, and it's going nuts like that,
It gets eaten.
it gets eaten.
It's going to get chomped.
Yeah. So lively baits are key.
Yeah. And you don't think about your bait maintenance as much this time of the year. Summertime, you worry, especially if you've bought, $40 worth of croakers or pigfish.
I don't know where you're
$50.
getting $40. You go to Port Canaveral and buy enough to go for a snook trip, and you're
See, I don't
closer
buy
to 90.
I don't buy croakers. I buy pigfish.
$3 a piece, man.
Yeah, I buy the pigfish and I got it set up, and I think it's for 50 pigfish, it's $28 or something.
Yeah.
But so if I get 100, it's like $50.
Well, 36 pigfish,
Yeah,
is, well, I shouldn't say 30. I should say 3 dozen
yeah.
pigfish is about $90.
Holy cow!
Yeah, they're $3 a piece.
Yeah, I don't pay that. At that point, I'll catch the bait myself at that point.
But on a 4-hour trip,
Yeah,
and you got 4 people.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, somebody else is paying for the bait at that point. But yeah, if you want to use these at that price, thank God I got Jenny and Alan, and they're great. And I know the guys that are, but I think the croakers up in my area are $2 a piece. So it's not that bad.
Well, they're
but
$3 a piece at Canaveral, and you can't go with a dozen.
yeah. Oh no.
There's no sense in it. No sense in it.
No.
Because you're going to fish an hour at that,
Yeah.
if that. And on a 6, 5, 6, 7 hour trip, 8 hour trip,
Yeah.
you got to have 2, 3, 4 dozen,
Yeah.
and you'll probably burn through most of them on a snook trip.
And that's, and I've got a few areas where I can go catch them myself, where I go out there and throw the cast. And that's what a lot of guys do. They go catch them the day before themselves, and they'll catch, 200 of them. So that'll last them for a couple of days. But
Yeah.
you gotta know how to maintain that bait and keep it alive.
That is the truth. Bait savers, I use one called Prime that actually Greg Lund
Yeah.
got for me, and it's a liquid.
Yeah.
You just put like 1 cap full for every
Yeah.
gallon, and so I use that Prime, and then I also use the actual Bait Saver brand crystals, those bluish green crystals. I use those as well.
I'm gonna give you a secret. Hydrogen peroxide. A couple capfuls of hydrogen peroxide, it oxygenates the water even more. I learned that from my bait guy.
Really?
Yeah. Hydrogen peroxide, just a couple capfuls of it in there, and it oxygenates the water more. If you're just running bubbler and you're not, because like in the summertime, I don't pump water in and out. I stop in deep water, fill it up, then I shut it off. I don't want, because you can run through a shallow flat and the water will go.
Water.
Yeah, and get bad water,
Yeah.
and suddenly everything's dead. So, yeah, a couple capfuls of hydrogen peroxide.
So mine isn't necessarily the bubbler, because the bubbler, like I have a recirc in
Yeah.
my bait well.
Yep.
And it's 800-gallon recirc on a 30-gallon well. I mean,
Oh, geez. Yeah.
it blows. It blows plenty of oxygen back into the water. Mine is negating the amount of ammonia and
Yeah.
from the urine
Yep.
and the feces from the fish.
Yeah.
Negating that is
Yeah.
is a huge part of my bait maintenance.
Yeah.
And especially if you've got sardines or pilchards.
Yeah.
Pogies, you can't run
can't.
pogies.
No.
You have to run raw water on pogies.
Yeah. But, you know,
but the
offshore-
others you can
Yeah.
you can run treated water, if you will,
Yeah.
for a certain period of time, and especially if you have an addition of a bubbler in with the research. So that really helps those. But keeping that ammonia down is key for me. Well, guys and gals, we're going to take our last break of the day. When we come back, we got the wrap up here with Catch Your Memory Outdoors. So don't go away. Captain Mike Mann and myself, Jim Ross, are going to be right back after these messages. Appreciate you tuning in. Oh, the things we do on break, I tell you. That's a good thing we don't have the live feed up during the breaks, that's for sure. Hey, this segment of the show is brought to you by Strike Zone down in Melbourne. Stop in at Strike Zone and get all of the cool gear that you need to get out on the water and catch your next fish. You know, one of the things that I've been using lately, Mike, is obviously small baits because it's wintertime. The 2-inch crappie dappers on the Buddha jig heads.
Yeah.
Money.
Oh,
just
yeah.
money for me, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. And then you just take the crappie dapper off and you put a shrimp on it.
Yeah.
So it's this super versatile jig head rig that catches trout, snook, redfish, black drum, sheep's head, and so those are some of the things that I like to use at this time of the year, and it's hard to find them.
Yeah.
It's hard to find them, so you got to go to a place like Strike Zone and pick them up there. But we were kind of talking during the break about casting and sight casting to specific fish. And this is the time of the year when those fish come out of those deeper holes and they get along those edges. And whether they're crawling a shoreline, whether they're sitting in a pothole, just kind of chilling, or whether they're actually working along a mangrove edge, spot casting to a specific targeted area, that sight casting opportunity that's what we live for, really.
Yeah. Oh man, it's what gets
it's
us
that
excited.
and top water plugs. It's those are the two things that really get you going. And to be able to see a fish moving, make the presentation, work the lure or the bait into the zone, and then watch the reaction of the fish, hopefully a positive one. We'll start getting much more positive reactions than what we've been getting the last couple of weeks. There's been a lot of refusals. Character building. There's been a lot of character building.
They'll
the
warm up
weather,
to
the
it.
fish. But I tell you, it's one of those things where this is the best time of the year, man. February, right after the coldest 2 weeks of the year, February, it starts warming up and everything gets happy. We're going to get a little lull here in mid-March because we're going to get a bunch of wind and the fish are going to kind of get confused and scattered. And then April and May, it's on. It's on.
Tarpon will start trickling in, and
I actually saw some juvenile tarpon yesterday.
somebody else told me that they saw some. They said they saw a dead one.
Oh,
and then they saw some. They said it was just one.
Yeah.
And then they saw some other juveniles. Well, we were talking in December, 64-degree water. I was pulling over by the clinkers, and my guy goes, "What are those?" And there were 3-foot and 4-foot long tarpon laid up right
Just
there.
laid up. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I love tarpon. I love them. It's an addiction. Yeah, cold
I'm
water.
not sure. Other than catfish and stingrays, I'm not sure. And actually, those big stingrays, like when we're snook fishing and you're throwing croakers or you're throwing shrimp or you're throwing whatever, and you hook onto one of those, 30, 40-pound stingrays.
Yeah.
I mean, the fight's not bad.
Yeah.
We make a joke about it because the fish will run and then it'll run and then it'll just suck in the mud.
Yeah.
So we call them mud marlin.
Yes. Play the banjo till you can get them to pop up again, annoy them.
But it's amazing, the strength that some of these fish have. And then, of course, the shark population has gotten so good in the last couple of years. Glenn Austin and I talk about the sharks a lot. We do a lot of shark fishing with plugs.
Yeah.
And it's amazing along the beach how you can pull up to an area where you see a spinner shark jump or you see some bait fish working, and you start throwing these big chuggers. We throw the Rapala Explodes.
Yeah.
They're just a huge cupped face chugger. And you start pulling that thing and chugging that thing. Watch a shark come up behind that and strike that. I'm not exactly sure if I've seen anything that violent in my life. A spinner shark or a black tip shark exploding on a 10-inch long plug that weighs a pound and a half. Dude, it's incredible.
That's a good time.
And,
I mean,
and you know, those fish have really become a staple of, I know with Glenn in particular, they're a staple of his fishery now. And I don't have as many opportunities. From Sebastian south of Vero, there are a lot of sharks. It's just like up at Smyrna.
Oh, New Smyrna.
Canaveral, not that we don't have sharks,
Yeah.
but I would say that they're a little more scattered. Yeah. They're not quite as concentrated as they are like just on the south side of Ponce Inlet or just south.
You don't have the flow out the inlet.
That's probably part of it. I mean, we have a lot of sharks, don't get me wrong, but they seem to be spread out more.
You guys have some big sharks. Well, from you guys north, once you get to the False Cape and up to, man, there's some
hammerheads.
Big hammerheads through there. I mean, last year looking for Cobia, I think it was, or maybe tarp. There was one hammerhead working through there. His fin probably stuck 4 foot up out of the water. I mean, he was huge. I mean, just a giant, big, mean hammerhead.
You know what's interesting is sometimes when they're up floating on the top and just swimming in the surface tension, you're looking at that fin and you're like, what is that? Because it does, right at first, it doesn't really register. It's like, what is that?
Yeah.
It's the wrong color to be flotsam. It's sticking straight up
and down. It's a different shape
than
most shark fins.
And then you see it and you're like, oh, whoa.
That's a big boy.
And then I start going over to them because you never know.
Yeah.
Those fish on the beach like that, especially the bulls and the hammerheads, sometimes the cobia will follow them.
We went and checked it out.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Well, if nothing else, it's just cool to go see one that's, you start looking at a piece of fish with a 2 foot high dorsal fin that weighs 800 pounds.
Yeah.
And a hammer that's 5 feet, 4.5 feet across. That's a big piece of fish.
People don't realize.
McDonald's could do a lot with that.
People don't realize how massive they truly are because the average person doesn't get to see. And we don't see it that often. So when we see it, it's cool for us. And then you get somebody who's never seen it. And you're in a 22, 23, 24 foot boat and you pull up to a fish that's, 16 foot long. And it's like, okay. It's like a big gator. Big gator's the same way. You pull up to in the lagoon when I'm in my 18 foot skiff and I pull up to a 10 or 12 foot gator that happens to have moved out there. And the guys kind of look, how deep's the water? I go, it's like 2.5 foot. So he could come in the boat if he. Oh yeah, he could come in here if he.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he could come in here if he wanted to. He doesn't want to though. But
it's a good thing he didn't want to. That's for sure.
I'm excited. I think we're going to have a tremendous year of fishing. I think we're going to kind of get back to what we've been missing for the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, it started off really good. We ended last year, I would say last year, December was a little slower as far as overall catches than what we had seen the year before. January was definitely slower, much, much slower. Last January was a much better weather year. The pompano, the whiting, the various things that we were seeing out of the Cape area were better last year than this year. However, now the lagoon's starting to pick back up. The lagoons, I should say, the tri-lagoon area, Banana, Indian, Mosquito, small pockets, okay? So just remember this, guys and gals. When you find fish, a lot of times you don't want to leave fish to go find other fish. But make part of your day an exploration. Make part of your day of, I'm going to go take a look at this shoreline because I haven't looked at it in a while.
Yeah.
And even if you just turn the trolling motor on and just kind of buzz down the shoreline or buzz down through the canal system that has the mangroves, or the docks, you need to know.
Just look.
You need to know.
Yeah.
So, but there's fish coming out of those holes now, and it's springtime. It's time to get going.
Isn't it great? It's February 1st, and we're calling it springtime. I'm so glad we don't live up north, because this little taste of what northern weather is like. I don't like north weather. I mean.
Now, 2 weeks ago and through last Sunday, I lived too far north.
Yeah.
I did. I lived too far north.
Yeah.
But for 2 weeks out of the year, I can deal with it.
I had my heat on more in the month of January than I've had it on in the last 26 years combined.
Yeah, it was pretty chilly. However, last night I had to turn the air conditioner on.
Yeah, my AC's back on now.
So, yeah, so
My AC's back on. It's yeah. I mean, what? 11 inches, 10 inches of snow in the Panhandle?
crazy.
What are you going to do? But I think we're going to have a good year. I think because of what we've had in the cold water, I think we're going to have a really good bait run. I'm hoping I'm right.
I'm already seeing a lot of bait.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of those little silver sides and little, little, I don't even know, there's these little nondescript minnows. I'm not exactly sure what they are. They're not finger mullet. They're not silver sides, but whatever they are, there's a lot of them in the lagoon right now.
Yeah.
So those are positives. And that's why those smaller lures are working so
Yeah,
good.
they work real well.
Well, Bud, we are completely out of time. We've had 2 hours of fun this morning.
It's a good time.
Good time today. How does somebody get a hold of Captain Mike Mann and go do some fishing with Captain Mike Mann in Mosquito Lagoon?
Yep, I've got some days open this month. You can give me a call at area code 386-295-5991. You can go right to my website, fatfishguide.com. You can follow me on Instagram, CAPT Mike Mann, and we're going to change it up because right now my Facebook page is down, so you can go right to my personal Facebook page, Captain Michael Mann.
Gotcha. Well, guys and gals, till next week, he's Mike Mann. I'm Captain Jim Ross, and we want you guys and gals out there to do exactly what we're going to do. Get out there and catch yourselves a memory.